One of the main questions I've heard while here from people is the threat of a nuclear weapon being used, either in Ukraine or it's spiraling out into a full-scale nuclear war. I wanted either of you could pick this up. What do you gauge the threat is of something like that happening? And what is the reaction of people on the ground in Ukraine to the constant threat of those types of weapons being used?
I think that there are two sides of it. Let's start from the reaction of the people on the ground. As much as media is trying to inform people about the possible threat of the nuclear attack, of course, people are worried, they're frustrated, but at the same time, all anxiety and anxiety from war as well, it also has its own phases. So the first phase was denial, then it was the peak of the anxiety, and right now people are just trying to think about those safety plans, plans B, to get some water, food, and just first necessity stuff in case if something happens. Then if we talk about that in terms of how generally media and propaganda is working, I think that it also comes from both sides, because I think that everyone would agree that all wars are hybrid these days, and to impose the threat and the opportunity of the nuclear attack is one thing, but to make it work, it's the second thing. And even if the decision is made to impose the nuclear weapon, it doesn't mean that it would go through the whole mechanism, and all of those who stand behind those processes would really implement it. However, if we talk about the possibility, I don't think that it would be a full-scale nuclear attack. It can be locally, for example, it could be around the borders, it could be near Chernihiv, it could be near Kharkiv, or it could be from the side of Kherson. But however, those weapons that are applied, they have the mechanism of work so that the nuclear threat would go down just in a week. So it would not be compared, for example, to the tragedy of Chernobyl nuclear station or whatsoever.
Do you have anything to say?
Well, I think it comes down to that. I mean, we have, when we think nuclear, we're thinking major, but like they have, there's obviously nuclear weapons that are a smaller scale that they can use. But I think that's like the last resort, but I think out of desperation. So I think if Putin's realizing he's losing this war and he gets desperate because he doesn't want to go back, and he can't undo everything that's already been done for years, not just this year, but out of desperation, it will come down to that.
I've talked to a lot of analysts about this, military analysts, because I am not an expert on these weapons. But the general response I get is that the odds of something like this happening are of course low, because there's many responses that would be given to Russia. The first problem is delivering a weapon of this type has complications. First off, when you hit the button to do this type of thing, it's not that a nuke just gets launched, it goes down a chain of command. Right. And if one person in that chain of command, like she said earlier, says no, then you can't do it. If any single one of them says, I don't want all my family to be killed in a radiated hellfire and is somewhat sensible, then it stops the process. The other problem is, let's say you nuke Kiev or you nuke Kramatorsk or any of these major locations, the wind can carry the radiation into Russia. The Chernobyl nuclear disaster had radiation carried all the way to Sweden, and cancer rates throughout the Soviet Union spiked after Chernobyl. And so Vladimir Putin would have to make the calculation that there's a decent chance that this wouldn't only affect the Ukrainians, this could affect the Russians and the entire international community.